Closet, also known as the Jim McCarthy Voiceovers World Headquarters Studio. This is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Please subscribe, rate, and comment via jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast. This is episode 40 of the JMVO Weekly Primer. This podcast is about making your life better through marinating your mind in good stuff. My name is Jim McCarthy, owner, operator, and chief bottle washer at jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com. I believe that as business owners, entrepreneurs, and overall salespeople, we are bombarded by negativity every day. It's the last thing that we need. If you want to see your life and business change for the better, consume nurturing, good stuff. Of course, you can subscribe to the podcast, comment, rate, like, make show suggestions, ask me questions, anything that you want me to have on, and maybe even let me know of a podcast platform you want the show on. By all means, hit me up, jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast. You can pick your poison for iPhone and Android, iTunes, Stitcher, and Blueberry. I believe we're on Spotify now. And a bunch of other different platforms I got to update, but it's growing in leaps and bounds by the weeks as they pass by. Of course, the podcast is sponsored by Big Dot Lighting, commercial LED lighting conversion specialists. We convert all sorts of commercial facilities to energy-efficient LED lighting. LAMP is our program, the lighting and maintenance partnership, big for businesses that are open-minded and they want an operational expense type of approach to upgrading their entire lighting system. And they can do it over a 5-year period. We base it on your square footage. We have a multiplier. It's all sorts of very complicated stuff on our end, but very easy on your end. So look it up, bigdotlighting.com. Now, on with the show. So, pardon me. Several years ago, several years ago, over 20, holy crap, 20 years ago, over 20 flipping years ago. Actually, no, it wasn't 20 years ago. I'm bad at math. That's why I was in radio. 18 years ago, I was at a radio station in Connecticut, cutting my teeth. I spent about 1 to 2 years there. Got really good, moved up the ladder, became the production director, got into quote-unquote management, and really wanted to start, okay, if you want to get good in this business, you got to move around. If you want to start making better money, you got to move around. So I put my 10-minute production demo tape together, which was just atrocious to do a 10-minute demo of anything that no program director would sit and listen to, probably past the first 10 seconds, because it was just so corny. One of these days I'm going to put it up and be completely embarrassed. But anyway, I sent that out to a multitude of radio stations around the country. Okay. Eventually I condensed it down to about 60 seconds and found various radio stations at the time that were advertising in trade magazines for production directors like myself. At the time, 2001, I was just chomping at the bit to get the hell out of my radio station. I wanted to move on and move up. I come home to a voicemail. Voicemail wasn't even a voicemail. It was a message on my answering machine. And it's from a gentleman named Gavin Spittle in Las Vegas. Says, hey, I heard your demo. I like it. Let's talk. So my wife-to-be, I think she got the message first. She says, dude, you can't work for a guy named Gavin Spittle, all right? And I said, you know what? I'm going to take all comers, all right? And it was funny because it was between KXNT in Las Vegas and W something or other, which I can't remember, but it was on Long Island. And it was like staying in that general area of the country where it was somewhat comfortable. We decided to take the leap, the big adventure, and go into the West. And it was one of the best things that we've ever done. Worked with this gentleman that's going to be a guest on my show for several years. We've been friends ever since, very loosely, but every time we connect, it's like we never stop talking. And he is going to bring a wealth of knowledge to you because there are a lot of people out there who want to get into podcasting. It's a very popular thing to do right now. The funny thing is that from a radio standpoint, podcasting is a radio show. Simple as that. It's entertainment first, informative second, and you got to have the little tenets that go along with it that make a radio show a good radio show. And he's one of the country's leading experts. I believe he just won an award. No, you're like, was it a new award that just came out? What was that all about? Gavin Spittle, everybody, please welcome to the program.
Hey, what's up? I wouldn't work for a guy named Spittle either. Named one of the top sports program directors in the country.
For a very good reason.
Yes, humble brag.
Hashtag.
Hashtag.
So you and I worked together for, in the grand scheme of things, kind of a brief period. I was there 4 years, and about half that time I was with you. And you ended up moving to, I'm trying to think of the call letters, but I don't know why I'm completely Live 105.3. That was a radio station.
In Dallas.
In Dallas. Yeah. And it was an awesome radio station, great call letters, great personalities. But it was my first foray in Vegas into talk radio. I came from a rock background, classic rock, and you had hired me because I had some sort of production prowess that you appreciated, and I'm sure I was the right price. And we basically started from there, and I started really digging into what is talk radio and just fell in love with it. Let's start from your beginnings. I know that you started up in Boston. Congratulations on your Super Bowl win, by the way. I'm sure you're very excited.
I am a Dallas Cowboys fan, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
Yes.
No longer a Pats fan.
No, my radio station is the home of the Dallas Cowboys, so I am a proud Cowboys fan. Yes.
Nice. I remember times in your house watching the Super Bowl, and it's like you were pulling your hair out over.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt. I mean, at one time I was a Patriots season ticket holder. I think they're a dynasty. I'm a Texas Rangers fan. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. I'm a huge Dallas Stars fan, Dallas Mavericks. I just embrace the city that I'm in. So, we carry the Rangers and the Cowboys. So, I'm proud of those partnerships. And I think when you get to the nitty gritty of it and meet the people on the inside, you really develop a nice relationship and you want them to win. So, and I'm not going to lie, if the Dallas Cowboys do well, I do well. So my radio station does well. So
basically 16 years there, they consider you a native by now, right?
Absolutely. Well, they embraced me since day one. Texas is an amazing place to live. I thought Nevada was an amazing place to live. They're both very similar in the way people are treated. But there is something to be said for Southern hospitality. It's really, really cool. I remember the first time that I was actually going back to Las Vegas, and I didn't know what bus to jump on to go into the terminal. And I asked a woman, and she said, "I think it's that one." And then she jumped on the bus and sat next to me and said, "Well, you sure what gate?" And I said, "I'm not." I said, "But I know it's American." And she said, "Whoa, that could be all over the place. Let's look it up real quick." And I said, "Oh, okay. Are you going to the same area?" She goes, "No, I just wanted to help you." And she got off the bus. I said, "This is amazing. This is quite the place." Before I forget, the people that are watching this, you left out a huge detail. In your demo, there was also a picture of Jim McCarthy that read, I'll never forget, "When I put my mind to something, I accomplish it." And it was a topless picture of you before. That's right. And then after with bulging muscles.
That's right.
Let's not leave out the details.
No, I completely forgot about that. Put it out there.
You know what it does is it brings it back because you stuck out from the rest.
Right.
What kind of guy puts a topless photo in a resume?
I also tell the story about how you came to New York and I was willing to make the drive down there, and I said, "I'm going to meet you."
Yeah.
And I was so hell-bent on getting this job. I created an entirely new demo and burned it on a disc because we had a CD burner at the time. It was cutting-edge technology. I brought my Discman with me with a pair of headphones so I could play it for you.
Yeah. I
wanted that job.
Listen, you wanted that job, and I could tell you wanted that job. And I actually wanted someone in the rock industry because I wanted to make my station sound different. I wanted to make it sound cool or hip, so to speak. I remember, the music beds we used at the time were, techno and stuff. We were different. We were unique. And I think that really set us apart. I think too many times it's like, well, I'm in this format, so therefore I only have to do that. And that is actually the opposite of what you should do. You should be unique and you should be different.
Right. It was also a mixture of people in that building in that time that was just, I mean, maybe I'm just thinking because I'm biased, but it was special. It was so something special about it during that time with the people that we had and the relationships we made, from, John David Wells right on to down to Peter Sorensen, Tommy Noodles, Johnson and Tofty, all those guys.
Yeah.
Alan and Heidi, Jeff.
I try to keep in touch with as many as possible because to me, those are some of the most special years. I mean, I hold in my heart every radio station that I've worked for. That one was really, really cool. It was an amazing run. And, just like any radio station, or if you're talking about podcasting and you're a team, you're creating something, it's that team concept. It doesn't go anywhere without a team concept first. And I think the coolest thing is when you look back on those Vegas days, we we out with each other. We went to each other's birthday parties or something like that. We truly considered each other teammates on the front line, focusing on one goal and creating a radio station that, candidly, a lot of people didn't think would work in a city like Las Vegas. And,
we had a lot to prove.
They did. Yeah, we did.
We had a lot to prove. And even in our own building, it was kind of like our backs were up against a wall.
Yeah, I've always said, and it goes back to your podcasting, if you have a good product, like a lot of people say, well, I can't do this because it's on the AM band. And my thing is if it can be heard in no matter what the medium, and it's a great product, it will not only be found, it will go viral and it will grow.
And that's the big thing, is that radio people already have the magic ingredient. They know how to make it entertaining, informative. The only thing that, and it's just, they got to package it up and make it digital now. And put it out on a podcast and stuff like that. There are people out there that want to start a podcast. And I said, the thing about a podcast that people, when they approach me about it, is everyone thinks, well, a lot of people think that, well, all they do is talk on the air. And that's just easy. Well, okay, you try it. You try talking and doing show prep every day for 4 hours and then doing a 3 to 4 hour show and mapping out what you're going to be talking about. Yeah, you have phone callers that help you through, but being mindful that you got to play stop sets and commercials and things like that and get in sponsors and make sure you're saying the call letters right and getting that, the mouth muscle memory to do the things that you need. Yeah. It's a lot harder than it looks. And a lot of people see what I do and they're like, wow, you make it look so easy. I'm like, guys, I have an unfair advantage. I spent a majority of my professional adult life doing this. All right. Yeah. I'm a ham by nature. Okay. So this is something that I always wanted to be on the air in this capacity as well. So this is hey, have at it, bud. Go see how, go get an audience. Yeah. That's the toughest part.
Yeah. I think, one of the things that I think people need to realize is there's a lot of, the goal is to make it sound conversational. The goal is to make it sound special, but the organization behind the scenes is imperative. Yeah. Because you want to be highly organized, and the great ones make it seem like you're not organized at all. There's not a show out there that just riffs. There's concepts and there's a pattern of where they go and when they go. And if breaking news happens, they'll be all over it, and that may push some things. But, it's highly organized behind the scenes before. And I think that's one of the misnomers that people think, like you said, they can just jump in front of a microphone and go. I think one of the great talents is finding in our business what we call the hit. And a good example is a music station kind of plays, the same song. You say, oh man, I've heard that song over and over again. They usually play every hour, hour and a half. Well, that's because it's a hit. And the question becomes, can you find those hits on topics that are going to get more and more people to listen? And that's one of the biggest things. I've heard some of the great voices that don't have hits, and I've heard people that normally might not be on a podcast or radio that have amazing hits that everything they talk about, I'm interested in. Everything they talk about some way, somehow is relatable to something that I've done or I'm currently doing. Those are the people that stand out.
And it's funny because I'm my own show's producer, and whenever I get a good piece of content that you just ran off on a riff, one of the things that they'll do in radio is that on a talk show, at least, you'll have a guy in another room that's running the board, the producer, well, sometimes most shows, depending on the budget, have their own board op who does that, runs the board, make sure that the commercials are getting in, they're signaling the talent when to break, yada yada yada. On the other hand, there's a producer that if a topic comes up and they reference something, he's off on the computer finding a drop or a soundbite or something, and he's making sure the roadmap of the show stays true to where they want to go with it, and he works with the talent. So I'm kind of doing my own producing here. I'm like taking notes, so I'm not ignoring you. I'm actually writing down at this particular time, 15 minutes in the show, you talked about hits. So that's the fun part of doing your own podcast, to get to play your own producer as well.
Yeah.
But getting into where you started and talk a little bit about that, how everything began for you. What made you fall in love with radio?
So I was always fascinated with broadcasting. Growing up outside of the Boston area, listening to WBZ and a guy named Dave Maynard, who also hosted a TV show called Community Auditions well before there was American Idol. There was a guy named Dave Maynard locally in Boston who would have talent come in and they would rate them and they'd have prizes. I was always fascinated by his talent of bringing the news, but at the same time doing it in a manner that made me laugh. And so I was kind of a talk radio junkie. I mean, I'm talking like 8th grade through high school of listening to talk radio. I listened to music, but talk always was more stimulating to me. So I was a big sports fan, and I wanted to get into sports radio. And radio always appealed to me. And the reason radio appealed to me is I would drive around and I would listen, and I would put a picture in my head. And the comparison I give is if you read your favorite book and you develop those characters in your head, and then the movie comes out, kind of like Lord of the Flies. When I read Lord of the Flies, it was an amazing book. And then I saw the movie and I was like, wow, I did not picture the characters like that. And it just did not resonate like, or Mosquito Coast with Harrison Ford as two examples. I mean, you know, I always personally feel as though the book's better because I'm making the movie in my head. And so radio to me is that creative, you have to go that extra length. If you're doing a Red Sox for instance, down here, we have a Hall of Fame announcer, Eric Nadel, who's amazing on my radio station. And one thing he does is explains the team colors, you know, in the first couple of innings, what the pitcher's wearing. If he's got a long sleeve, it falls at his elbows. And so driving around listening to that, I have a picture in my head. And a lot of times what I'll do is when I talk to people, I'll explain what that theater of mind is and you know, how you can accomplish it and the extra description. Like I use the example, I'll take a pebble and I'll have a student come to the front of the class and I'll say, what is this? And they say, it's a rock. And I say, okay, close your eyes and close. I said, you know, there's a tale of penguins searching 2 miles through tundra and blizzards, and they're trying to find that perfect stone. And when they find that perfect stone, they don't have hands, but somehow they get that pebble back through once again that Arctic weather and snow, and they place that pebble at the foot of a female penguin. And if that female penguin loves that pebble, they become mates forever. So you all of a sudden you took a regular rock and you turned it into a love story. And to me, that's theater of mind. And hopefully the people pictured the penguin. I did that, the fast version, pictured the penguin going through that tundra. And so that's what I think attracted me to radio. And that's why I got into it. And I felt as though spoken word radio appealed to me.
Yeah, I could see that. And it's it appealed to me when I was going to broadcasting school. Of all the radio stations I listened to was WFAN in New York City.
Yeah.
And mind you, I'm not a big sports guy. You know that.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I was just drawn to that radio station. It was colorful. It was, you know, the personalities. It was Mike and the Mad Dog in the afternoon and Steve Summers in the midday. And I aspired to be, well, I mean, I was always a Howard Stern fan from the 80s. My brother loved him. And because of that, you know, I then became familiar with him and became a huge fan in the 90s and tried to get my band on his show back then and all that stuff. But he, you know, listening to that form of radio really just, man, that's cool. That would be so cool to do that. So, of course, naturally, I became self-aware, I guess, in the first couple of years at I-95. You know, I happened to be on the air by accident. Literally, Matt Carey, if you remember him, he came into the, you know, he and I were barely friends at the time, and he comes in and he goes, hey, you want to be on the air? And I was there for maybe 8 months, always just in the production studio recording commercials. And the program director at the time heard my voice on the air, and we were kind of sort of familiar with each other. And he says, hey, you want to be on the air? And I'm like, you know, yeah, someday. He goes, no, now. It was literally one of those, you know, Bass Man took the afternoon off because his wife was, he had some family issues going on, so he had to go home. Matt Carey then had his night shift. He had to fill in for Bass Man. The guy who typically came after Matt Carey, they couldn't hunt down. So, you know, it came down to, okay, who's left in the building? That kind of thing. But that was how I got on the air. And I did the on-air thing for several years, doing the nights and just doing rock records and, you know, this is, that was, you know, here's what's coming next, the latest from Led Zeppelin, reading Liner Car. It just wasn't me. You know, that's what really intrigued me with the talk radios, because now you can really shine. But then again, yeah, you can do that, but you still got to do it inside the lane a little bit and have those bumpers to keep you going down the road the right way. You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
You brought up radio talent, even though as scattered as it may seem, it's still within those confines of a bumper. You know, there's still people behind the scenes making sure we're going in the right direction.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The only exception, and they even admitted it on the air, was Opie and Anthony. They would be all over the friggin' place.
Well, I mean, that's true, but Opie and Anthony had an amazing talent of making sure that everything they talked about was appealing. So, I mean, I think it's, you know, once again, they can say all they want that they were riffing, and they probably were to some extent, but they also knew how to play the hits. And I can't say it enough. Like, you got to find those topics that really, really hit home and appeal to listeners, whether it be a podcast or, you know, whether it be a radio station. I think it's vital. I think, you know, one thing that I just wanted to say real quick is that we talked about this before. There are a lot of podcasters that basically say radio's dead, and I think it's anything but that. I'm really proud of what Entercom, the company I work for, has done as far as the pride in radio. I think because radio is a medium that has been there for so long, people take it for granted. And it actually is on the growth stage. And I think a lot of people think it's dying because of Sirius XM or Pandora or Spotify, or those make up a piece of the pie. But the biggest piece of the pie comes from radio. And radio is actually realizing that podcasting is growing. And in fact, a lot of radio stations, including my own, do several podcasts.
Which is smart.
Yeah, it's a business that we're not ignoring. And I think what we have is we can do a podcast, and then we have a huge promotional vehicle in which we can drive that podcast. So I think, you know, I'm pretty proud of how radio has embraced it, and how the company that I work for, you know, has embraced that medium.
Well, historically, I mean, we've both worked for, you know, huge corporate conglomerates. Well, I mean, the one I did work for was the one we worked for in Vegas before they got bought out by Entercom.
Yep.
Which was the Infinity Group at the time, which became CBS and such. But I mean, a lot of that time, because of the 1996 Telecom Act, radio for a while there became a real estate game. You know, all these different companies were going out and buying up these mom and pop radio properties. And I remember even talking to our old dear old friend Sam O'Neill, and he even said that, you know, when that happened, he was like, "Oh man, this is great. It means I'm gonna I'm going to get a lot more money. I'm going to have a raise and all this other stuff. And it's like, no, that's not what happened. If anything, we're going to lower what you're getting paid and give you more hats to wear. It was corporate consolidation to the nth degree, where they just, you know, it was a medium that advertised and told advertisers to advertise, but yet wouldn't advertise itself, which I always found very interesting. But as Entercom traditionally was always a radio-centric company, I do remember that. And they were based out of Colorado, I believe, or I think that's where they're based out.
Pennsylvania, just outside
Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
But I remember whenever I would look in the trades and I'd be job shopping, if it was an Entercom station, I was all over it. I just knew they were a good company. It was like Entercom, CBS, and then all the rest of them. Yeah,
it's pretty awesome when our CEO, David Field, you know, promotes what radio is all about and says, you know, we need to be loud and proud about radio. And, you know,
and absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that radio, the pendulum is certainly swinging the other way now. Because the talent brain drain that happened over several years, you can certainly start reinvigorating that and getting people to come, you know, to get more. I mean, how's that working? Being that you're in that management position, do you still find a lot of people that are clamoring to get into the business?
Yeah,
I've been out of it for 5 years. So
yeah, I mean, I think I do. There are a lot of people that aren't ready, and that's where I say, like, you know, have you thought about a podcast? Or I've actually invited people into the studio. I like those people that try to develop a relationship with me first. And, you know, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example I'm sure it's happened in your life. I got a Facebook request. So I saw that we had several of the same friends. I didn't know this person, agreed to do it, immediately got an instant message asking if I wanted to work for them. You know, and it's like, to me, it's the same way. It's like, you know, why are you pitching me without getting to know me first?
No.
You know, that to me is, you know, kind of fascinating. So I think, you know, podcasting can be an amazing gateway, or you might want to stay in podcasting. But it can be an amazing gateway to get into radio, or, you know, to have your own show. So yes, I do receive a lot of demos. I think it's cool that we're receiving, like on my news radio station, we're proud to say we do, you know, news all day long. It's a heritage radio station, over 90 years old, and our staff is young. Our morning anchor, who's female, and our afternoon anchor, who's female, and our another morning drive host, who's male, they all came from TV. So, you know, everyone thinks TV is sexy, and I think in a lot of ways it is, but, you know, these people came to work in radio and they love it. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and Ray, you guys are being very smart by redeploying all the different, because you already got the content going, and you have the training and the edge when it comes to finding, like what you're saying, you know, the hits of doing what you do. That's the biggest part of it. I mean, a lot of what I do is we do this show. It ends up being 45 minutes to an hour or whatever. I try and find the micro content promos, if you will, right? 30-second to 60-second, whatever, and put that out there as informational value tidbits to those in the business community and sales and entrepreneurship and, you know, being motivating and stuff like that. That's the hot thing right now with business people and that. And I'm involved quite considerably in that industry, I guess you could say, because entrepreneurship right now is hot. It's cool, you know, and a lot, and that's part of the equation is having a podcast. You know, getting people to listen to it. But again, you got to have that, got to get people interested in it, man. That's
absolutely. You have to find your niche and then run with it. You know, we laughed earlier, but you know, as I said before, your picture, when I, you know, put my mind to something, it hit home. And then, you know, the story of Heidi Harris, a talk show host, and how at that time I was going through cassette tapes. We'd get a box of cassette tapes, and basically it had a headshot. Well, we're in radio. Why do we need this? And it was about 9 o'clock at night. And I actually, you know, I'm not embarrassed to say this because she's gone on to have a successful career. I put it in for a laugh. And then I was doing work, and 30 minutes later I said, I'm still listening to this to this lady who's quite compelling. And I called her, and her first demo was not great. And I said, what happened to the girl on the cassette tape? And I'm proud to say, you know, she went on to really successful. She's special. That was a lounge singer who sent me, you know, but it definitely caught my attention. Don't be afraid to do unique things. A young Gavin Spittle once sent lobsters when I was on Cape Cod, Mass, to a person for a job after getting a phone interview and said, I'm so hungry for this job. It turned out the person was an animal rights activist and was trying to run around in a city not near the ocean trying to save the lobsters. So when I didn't get a call back, I finally got in touch with them, and they told me the story, and I said, maybe I'll send oatmeal cookies next time. And they said, yeah, that's a good idea. But the point was, I wasn't upset.
They can remember who you are.
I mean, I used to send one sneaker and say, I'm looking to get my foot in the door. You know, I mean, I wanted something different, unique, and it's stupid and it's nerdy. But I mean, the fact remains, it's like, you know, I love that nowadays when someone appeals to me. You know, it's one of those things. You want to get in front of an entrepreneur leader. My goodness, it's so easy to do research on people. And when I see an email that people talk about my background, you know, it's like, okay, they've done research, you know, but if you can't get my name right and you don't know about, like, I felt bad about doing this, but one day someone said, I really want to work for your station. And I called them on the spot on the phone, caught them off guard and said, why do you want to work for my radio station? Tell me a little bit about the radio station and why are you passionate to work there?
Sell it. Go ahead. Sell it. Come on.
They knew nothing about the radio station. And I felt awful. And I just kept saying, because I could tell that it's just
grasping
like,
at straws.
Yeah, air let out of the tires. Like they just felt so. And I said, please don't take this the wrong way. I said, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to show you that if you're going to send something, there are going to be people out there like myself that'll pick up the phone and call you. And you better be ready. If you're someplace, you better walk outside and know your stuff. Because I'll tell you, when I go into relationships and businesses, I know my stuff. I've done my research, whether it be a sales call or whether it's a partnership that I want to develop. Here's why I want to partner with you. And I tell them, you know, I appreciate when you did ... That goes so far because people are like, they're genuine. They've done their research. Boy, they really want this.
Yeah. And you're so right. I mean, even any given sale, a good buddy of mine, he says, you know, when you remember, not only just use somebody's name, but you remember their name, it's like music to their ears. Rich Redmond, he's a great friend of mine. I've known him for years. And he that's how he came up in Nashville as a drummer. He made people feel like they were the only person in that room, you know, and he still does that. And he doesn't have to, but that's part of his process. Whenever you can do that, and that's one of the things I started a podcast. I said, you know, I have such fantastical conversations with my friends that I just got to make a podcast out of this. And, you know, I wasn't out there just to, I want to put content out and, you know, try and make it valuable and everything. But my motivation was, I'm going to make this fun. It has to be fun for me because it's an extra 2 hours out of my week to do this, from, you know, getting on the air to packaging it up and just deploying it. It takes a little bit of time. So it better be fun for me. And it is. And if other people think you're having fun, that's part of the appeal. I always lead off with people. I tell them the equity points of a podcast, especially if you're a business owner, it's going to help you become, first of all, a better salesperson. Because when you conduct an interview with somebody, even if you're just doing a monologue, you have to, even when you're just talking, you kind of have to be a better listener, right? Yeah. When you're doing an interview, you have to be a better listener. You have to, you know, genuinely engage in the conversation. The second one is the fact that, hey, if you have a business, it's a great way to promote your business. You know, just like I did at the top of the show. Everyone knows I'm in voiceovers, and that's a primary income of mine, as well as the lighting. It's, you know, it's an advertiser. The third one is the fact that you can monetize it. You can actually sell sponsorships on your podcast, and it can pay for itself. Okay. Yeah. And the fourth one's probably the biggest one. I have had people on this podcast that get paid $5,000 to $10,000 an hour for their time for free. Okay. Who do you want to meet? Who do you want to bring onto your podcast? A podcast is a great way, at least from right now, to get somebody on that you want to pick their brain, right?
Right.
And it's like having your own radio show. It really is. I mean, we know people who would have a little bit of a ratings wave. They would kind of go in a trough, and all of a sudden you'd have to get involved, and then their ratings would climb, and then they'd get kind of, oh, I kind of got this. And then they'd bring on their childhood heroes.
Right. Yeah. That's a good one.
Finley Toyota. We all know who we're talking.
That's funny. There's another one too, and that's SEO, search engine optimization. Mm-hmm. If you own a business and you're not having someone write your blog, or if you're not writing a blog or doing videos, Google Analytics tells us, no matter what the algorithm is, that the more you do that, the more you're going to jump. And we all know getting on that first page is priceless. So I think from an SEO standpoint, even if you look and nobody is listening or nobody is watching, Google is, as far as the algorithm, and it shows that you're putting up new content and you're putting up video, which is huge, and or audio.
That's one of the things I press too is a lot of people, it's an audio form. No, it isn't. It's going to be video too. Yeah. My podcast, starts here on Facebook through BeLive.tv. It's broadcast. Whoever watches or listens at the time is whoever watches or listens. But then I take it and repurpose it for audio and video. It goes on YouTube. It goes on Facebook video. I have my own, podcast page. And then it goes out to all the different audio platforms, which are the big ones. I'm actually working with a podcast now, but it's a radio show in its origination. Its genesis starts right here in town at 99.7 WTN. It's called The Talk of Music City Real Estate, with a very great friend of mine who's a realtor, as well as another great friend of mine who's a mortgage originator. So it's a natural pairing of like-minded people that give nothing but really good, he's got over 30 years in the business. She just kills it when it comes to what she does. And basically together they make a great pairing, almost like Alan and Heidi in a way. I've come to think of it. But I told them when they came to, we want to do this radio show. I said, guys, it's block programming where you can buy it on the weekends at a talk radio station. If you're not taking that and repurposing it to be able to be listened to again, re-listening, if you will, you're just throwing money into the wind. Okay. Yeah. Because nobody's going to go back to the radio station and try and find it. You got to push it out there. And that's what I set up for them, And
there's also a stigma about block programming. And for those that don't know, that's basically people pay, to be on the radio. I think what people have to realize is, let's take like the marketing machine WWE, for example. They essentially four-wall their arenas. In other words, they buy the arena out for the night. Mm-hmm. So there are several business platforms that you can do things like that, and that's part of block programming. But you still got to be good, to attract listeners. You still got to build their trust, and you build trust through content. If I'm selling something, I need to, even if I'm selling that I do a sports show, I better be awful entertaining, because if I'm not entertaining, you're not going to come back.
You hit on a great point. I mean, that's the first order of business right there. You know what I mean? You got to be entertaining, not only just to be able to deliver the content, but if you do it in a way that's humdrum and you're up against the microphone and it's sweaty balls, and if you're not entertaining, nobody's going to listen. That takes a little bit of development and talent. And that's one of the things I hear people all the time. Well, I put my podcast out and it's out of sight, out of mind. I don't go back. I'm like, guys, no, you need to listen to yourself. You need to air check what you do. Yeah. Because believe it or not, I've listened to every single one of my podcasts. It's not narcissism. Well, maybe it is. But I mean, crying out loud, I sent a shirtless picture of me to you. But I mean, that's what you got to do it in order to get better. I said, Howard Stern made fun of himself in that movie because he was horrible in the beginning. Yeah. Then he found his voice and he understood what made himself better. He was just pushing himself to become better and better and better and better. And the funny, I always talk about that aspect too. I call it the Howard Stern effect, you know. I guess, how can you be divisive? And a lot of guys who coach media talent talk about this. How can you stick that flag in the soil and make your mark on a topic? I want to say it was even Jeff Burkett. You guys still talk, Jeff? Is he working with you? Does he? Awesome.
Yeah,
tell him I said hi.
He works with me.
He had talked about, I want to say it was, I can't remember who, but he was out of Texas, but he was syndicated in Vegas. He came in, I guess he was doing his show from our station, and he took a stance on a topic that was quite surprising. Like, really?
Jeff Katz?
Was that? No, it wasn't Jeff Katz. It was a syndicated guy. I can't remember his name.
Okay.
Mike something.
Okay.
He was out of Dallas, but he was syndicated to Vegas. So he was in our town. He did a show from our studio. Yeah. And Jeff was telling me the story. He says he came in and took a stance on a topic. And when he took a break, he came into the control room and they said, you know, he's like, do you really feel that way? He goes, son, it's all about entertainment and getting those phones to ring. I was like,
yeah,
wow.
I mean, that definitely takes talent. I encourage my host to never lie, though.
Be true
to yourself. The reason I say that, nothing against, but I feel personally as though listeners of a podcast or a radio station will sniff that out eventually, or you'll get caught on something.
Anything. Oh my God. People's BS meters are so attuned today. You gotta be you, man.
I hate when people are saying, like, they say, like, well, you took the opposite side just to take the opposite side. It's like, no, please don't say that about any of our hosts, because that is not true. These guys are genuine and their opinions are just that, opinions. So you can disagree.
You have to realize that some of the bigger influencers that are out there, you've heard of, I always talk about this guy, Gary Vaynerchuk is a huge influence of mine. There's a reason why he's got the following he does, is because he just says it like it is. I mean, he literally has that Howard Stern effect, right? He just puts it out there, plants it. This is what I stand for. If you agree, great. If not, then great. Divisiveness. What do you believe? What are you going to, and people are going to be, if you're doing it just for the sake of doing it, people are going to sniff it out, like you said, a mile away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, tell me a little bit more. Let's getting back into podcasting. Excuse me. What can people start thinking about? They're getting into podcasting. What are some of the conversations you would have with them if they came to you and they hit you up and wanted to pick your brain, and they knew about your radio stations and all the different things? They knew the rapport. They did it right. So
I think I want someone that's going to stick out. Like I always say, like, jump out of my radio station. That doesn't mean you yell, but your voice is unique. It cuts through the other noise and it makes a difference. So I'm listening to every word. And you don't have to have the greatest voice to do that, but I want someone that's opinionated. But, we do this thing. We did it 2 years ago. We're going to bring it back this summer, called Fan Phenom, in which it's been an amazing, we basically go around to bars throughout Dallas-Fort Worth, and we look for the next employee of the Fan, part-time, and they become a talk show host. And so I think we went through about 750 people, and a lot of them had great voices. But the one thing I noticed that basically disqualified a lot of people is the depth. And their demos were about 3 to 4 minutes in length. And they could not go 3 to 4 minutes as far as when the retort was there, or, tell me more about that. They couldn't get into it. So their initial point might have been good, but you have to have A, B, C, D, E. And if you're talking about A and you're monologuing off of A, it's okay to bring that subject back and go B, C, or you might do A, B, and C for that first monologue, have D and E ready if you're going to take calls. You always want to be enhancing the topic. And that's one thing I don't see is enough people, really providing that depth necessary to keep you hanging on. If you're just hitting the same point over and over again, to me, that's not the best, I've heard.
How many podcasts have you listened to where they start and they go, hey, man, I'm so excited to have you on. Hey, man, I'm excited to be on. Man, it's great to have you on. Man, it's great to be on. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yeah. Oh, man, it's great to have. Oh, my gosh. How many podcasts I listen to that are like that?
Yeah, I think it definitely at some point you have to say, okay, I have to make this as professional as possible.
maybe this isn't my thing.
Well, I mean, it's okay. It's just you have to hone your craft. And I mean, as a person who hires talent, I get that. I'm not, but it's like when you cut your teeth, if you're 7 minutes in and I haven't heard the substance yet, there's a good chance that I might not continue listening. You really got to get to it quick. I mean, imagine if, let's just say, Modern Family took 7 minutes and they were just getting warmed up. Yeah. It's like, no, you need to entertain, get into it as quick as possible. You can say your highs and everything, but, tell me what's important to me today. That's what's going to hook me.
Okay. Well, hit me between the eyes. How did I do?
You did well. You asked very good questions. And the one thing I like is that you kept the focus of the show, which is about podcasting and kind of about radio and talent. I appreciate that. There probably were some points where I might have taken that tree branch in a different direction, and you held it steady and brought it back to basically the trunk rather than allowing me to get to the twigs of the tree.
And a lot of that has to do with having an interest in the person you're talking to or interviewing. And I guess maybe for a talk show host or a podcaster, you may have to interview some people that you're like, I just have no interest in you. Has that happened a lot? I mean, it has to. Where the host just brings somebody on and it's like, oh my gosh.
I think we tend to vet them before and, have a good conversation with them before. And, sometimes you go back to the wheelhouse over and over again because that person's that good. And, after a while, you can kind of keep a running count of who's not that great on radio. We want the best of the best. And that's a big thing for us. If we bring on a bad guest, that's our fault. That's not their fault. That's our fault. Because we did not vet this, especially nowadays with YouTube and other mediums. They've most likely been interviewed before. So I'll prep if we're talking about a guest. I'll look into the guest and see how they are. And then I'll look also at the depth. If I can get really deep and find out something about that person, and then that host asks something about that, it's a totally different interview. It shows that, wow, this person really knows who I am. That's really cool. Getting back to that resume and stuff like that. Do you know the person that you're sending the demo or resume to? Do you know about their career? What are their interests, even outside of what they do for work? Because those are the things that'll catch people's interest. So if we're talking to an athlete, for example, and we ask a question about their off season, we know you're into so-and-so, that's what they want to talk about. They don't necessarily want to do a 20-minute interview on baseball. They want to talk about baseball, and they know that's part of their job to talk about baseball, but they might want to talk about something that was really cool they did with their family. If you can get them to that point, boy, are they going to open up, because once again, we talk about that trust, and that trust is there, that this is a cool person, and you know what? They're doing me right.
Gavin Spittle bringing the fire. Oh, gosh, man, that's some awesome stuff right there. A lot of really good knowledge nuggets right there, man. That's awesome. Talk a little bit about, I know you have an entrepreneurial bug as well.
Yeah.
Your company is a novelty t-shirt company. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I started it a few years ago, and I started it, and I'm so proud to say it's changed. When I started this company, it's called Awesome Sports Logos. It's a male t-shirt brand. And, females can wear it too. And basically it was to bring back the fun in sports logos. For a number of years, like for instance, the Atlanta Braves would have the Richmond Braves, and then they'd have, another team called the Braves, and you'd look up and down the minors, and, it would be like Red Sox, Red Sox, Red Sox, Braves, because Major League Baseball, the Chief brand, wanted to spread their brand to all these minor league cities. And I just felt as though the creativity in sports logos went away. So I came up with the concept where we bring the fun back in the sports logos, and they're made up teams, and they all have different meanings. Like, for instance, there is a town in Pennsylvania called Intercourse, Pennsylvania. So Intercourse, Pennsylvania is where the Academy Award winning film Witness was made with Harrison Ford.
Right.
So my team is called the Intercourse Witnesses. And, you know, it has that funny innuendo. Like, oh my gosh, you know, and you know, Intercourse, there's a huge Amish population. So it's a mean looking Amish guy with a pitchfork. And, you know, so it has double
watching
meaning.
Something.
Yeah, exactly. It has double meaning. Or, you know, the Idaho Taters, you know.
You had one for Nashville, didn't you?
Yes, the Nashville Bootleggers. Because bootlegging was big in Nashville, and it's basically a guy giving the Heisman pose, and instead of carrying a football, he's carrying a whiskey barrel. So, because, you know, and he was on the run, just like bootlegging. So, you know, the Idaho Taters, basically a tater is another name for home run. I couldn't believe that no one in Idaho used the term taters when it came to a baseball logo. So that's
what do they call them?
What's that?
What do they call them?
Just different names. So, I mean, you know, so basically I have the Brooklyn Leg Breakers, you know, just funny sports names. I am proud to say that there are several logo companies now that are definitely, you know, bringing, and it started with the El Paso Chihuahuas, and that was a huge seller. And so other teams are like, whoa, they're making a lot of money on their merchandise. And now you're seeing them pop up all over the country. So these local teams in smaller cities are now branding their own identity, and I absolutely love it. Nice.
Ryan Reed saying, ICU looking good. Ryan Reed, the owner of ICU Security. Shay Horseman, the Horseman. This is good stuff, Jim McCarthy. Thank you very much for the comment. Gavin, I got to ask you while we're on, can I be on your station now? Is this show worthy enough, you think? Or you know,
man, it's a pretty good show. I got to admit.
Not put you on the spot or anything.
Yeah, it's a pretty good show.
Either that or I could be. Does your station need a new voiceover guy? Because my balls have dropped. Probably when I was like 39, 40, and all of a sudden I can do I'm no Dana Hersey or Sam O'Neill, but I can hold my own.
You know, I'm incredibly loyal. You know that. And if my voice guy ever decides to depart, I will definitely think of you. But this guy has been with me for a while since I've actually come to Texas. And so I'm going to keep the current guy, but you're definitely on my list now.
Thank you. Who is your current guy?
My current guy is a guy by the name of John Riley. He's out of Boston.
I think I know who that is. I know I've heard his name, but you remember Paul Turner?
I know the name, yeah.
He was the one who voiced the Howard Stern show in the 90s.
Yeah, okay.
The Howard Stern show. You know, he almost looked like Val Kilmer. It's funny because none of these guys ever look like their voices, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he I don't know if he's still doing it or what, but one of the guys I interviewed on this podcast, I become like virtual fast friends with him. He runs a production house up in Pennsylvania. His name is Corey Disson, and he worked with Paul Turner, like, you know, kind of cut his teeth with him. So I was like, you know, and he's going to have him on his podcast. His podcast is called Go Get It, the Go Get It podcast. Very good stuff.
Nice.
He knows a lot of big voice guys.
Nice.
Myself included. I'm still not on his roster yet, which I got to talk to.
You will be.
Eventually. It's got to happen.
It's going to happen.
I can audition for you right here, no? Man, thanks for being on. Where can people find you and discover you and all that good stuff?
A couple things. You know, you talked about the t-shirt brand. It's awesomesportslogos.com. And you can reach me. Just look up Gavin Spittle on Facebook. There aren't many people with that name. By the way, Spittle is the drool that runs down the side of your mouth. Let everyone know. Thank you, Mom and Dad. But you know what? You know, there's not a name that I'd be prouder of.
Talk about differentiating yourself. That's just that alone would have gotten people noticed.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that for a number of years, you just say, "Oh my goodness," and now, I'm proud of it because of my mother and father. That's why I'm proud of it, because they're such good people.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's definitely a funny name. So there's you can find me on Facebook, Twitter at GJ Spittle. Or just search Gavin Spittle. And I would love to talk to people, future podcasters. I'm always looking for talent. I love my talent that I have. But one thing you'll find out about Gavin Spittle, he's always looking for talent. And whether it's with my radio stations, maybe it's someplace else in Entercom, but I'm always, storing them away, especially the good ones, for future opportunities.
You're the Simon Cowell of the Fan Dallas.
I don't know about that. He makes a lot more money. But I'm trying.
Right on, man. I appreciate you being on and taking some time with us today. If you want to know more about him, I'll put all his information in the description area. Of course, I'm going to have his thingy with the @ sign underneath his name. Man, I'm really good at keeping that stuff. The handle. That's right. The Instagram handle. GJ Spittle, at GJ Spittle. That's your Instagram as well?
My Instagram is actually under Awesome Sports Logos.
Okay.
I'll have a personal one. That's the next goal.
Go check it out. There's a lot of clever names there. AwesomeSportsLogos.com. Certainly buy a couple of T-shirts and maybe even, what the hell? I'll ask you. Because, the last episode, if anything, we learned that if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. Why not sponsor the podcast, man? I mean, I'm cheap.
Oh, that's a good point. I should definitely look into that. Yes.
Or get your own podcast. You'd be good.
Well, thank you. You can wear my shirts too.
I could send me some. I'll wear them.
No, absolutely. I know, man.
I'll put it under my shirt. This is a T-shirt.
Yeah. But seriously, for those people watching and listening, this guy's special, and I'm so glad to say that he was my teammate. And even though, like you said, we don't talk because we're both, in different directions and running around and everything like that. You were a special part of my life, and I truly appreciate it as a teammate and everything. You have a wonderful family, and I'm just so honored that we were able to work together and, along with the team, build something special. Those are memories I'll never forget. So thank you very much.
Buddy,
and what you're building now is special too. So for those potential advertisers out there and everything, you got an honest, kind guy who wants to make it in this world and has made it in this world. I just can't say enough good things about you, Jim.
Dude, when you come to town, we are certainly spooning now for sure.
I'm in.
Guys, this has been the JMVO Weekly Primer. Hit us up at jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast. If you have any not show ideas but guest ideas, if you want me on a different platform, you don't like Stitcher, iTunes, or any of the other platforms, just let me know, and we'll find that. Of course, ask any questions there. Rate and comment and subscribe to the podcast. I would vastly appreciate it. Even if you hate it, give me 1 star, give me 5 star, give me 3 stars. Actually, no, give me 1 star or 5 stars. Do it one or the other. Right? You're either hot or cold. If you're lukewarm, I spit you out of my mouth. So that's it. Thank you, Gavin Spittle. Awesome Sports Logos. Check it out. AwesomeSportsLogos.com. And of course, JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com/podcast. This is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Please subscribe, rate, and comment via JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com /podcast.